Afternoon, everyone. So today we are in the second day of our session. I hope you all had a refreshing break and ready for another productive session today. So already we have laid the foundation for LaTex. So now we'll build on the momentum for further another for 3 more days. So let's not waste our time. Let's get started. So over to you, ma'am. You can start with your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, all. So today we will start with a quick recap of what we did yesterday and then continue with it regarding packages as well as how to create lists in LaTeX. Okay. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So let's just create a new .tex file here. So if you hover on the left hand side, just underneath the menu, there is an icon to create new file. Alternatively, you can create a folder or upload a new file as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. Let's call this file as day2.tex. Okay. Create. So, does anyone recall what are the 3 fundamental commands that we need in order to create a successful LaTeX document?
Document type.
Yes, very good. So, first we need to specify the document type using the document class command. Here we will say the article. Okay. And next,
Preamble.
yes, so this defines the preamble. So, what is the command that comes after the document class in order to put our like the main document content, right? So there's something called as begin and end command, right? So we need to create the document environment. Okay. Again, say I would like to give a title to my document. How can I go about it? Does anyone recall the command to define the title?
Backslash title.
Yes, very nice. Backslash title and the input is the title, right? So just let's just say day 2. Okay. Now, if I execute my code here, will I get anything in my output PDF?
No.
No, because I have put the title command in my preamble, right? That is the region between the document class and the begin document. So yesterday we discussed that whatever only the contents that we put in the main document environment, that is this area, that is in this area, only those contents come in our output PDF. So which command do we use to make sure our title comes in the output PDF?
Make title. Backslash make
Yes.
title.
Okay, backslash make title. So in my document environment, I need to use a make title command. So now we have the date as well as the title. Now, to give the author, right? So if underneath the author name, I would like to give the author designation, right? How can I go about doing that? So how do I tell LaTeX the next content? Okay, so for example, this speaker needs to come in the next line.
double slash.
Yes, double backslash, and then we have that. Now, if I would want to add another author detail, how do I go about doing that?
Slash and
Yes, slash, and I can just author 2. Now again for the second author, I would like to add some another detail such as say another speaker. Okay, right? So how do I move this other speaker? Should I go back here or can I just use double backslash here itself?
double backslash here itself.
Okay, perfect. So whenever you would want to add another author details, you just need to keep on putting double backslash. So what you're saying is as soon as you use the and command, you're creating a new column, right? Until it encounters another and command, it keeps on adding to the same column. Okay, all right. Then we spoke about adding abstract, right? So for adding an abstract, does anyone recall the command? So first of all, do we need a
Backslash.
single command or an environment?
It's in a document. Environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So an environment meaning we always have a begin and an end, right? Now
Hmm.
what goes into the input of the begin?
Abstract.
Abstract, right? We have that option here. Okay. So we have the abstract. Now, then we moved on to a bit about sections, right? So if I would want to create a section, how do I go about doing it?
Backslash section.
Yeah, backslash section, and the input to the section is the section name. So we can just say first section, right? So I not only get a section name, but also the section number. In case I do not want a section number, how can I do
Backslash
that?
section asterisk.
Yeah, use an asterisk, right? So we can do unnumbered numbered section. Okay. And the same thing, we have a subsection, right? How many levels do we have?
3.
3, right? By default. So
Subsection.
subsection, yeah, subsection. So sorry, this should be first subsection and first subsection, right? Now, if for each of these sections, like organizational units, be it section, subsection, subsection, we do get a default numbering, right? So LaTeX maintains this internal counter. Now, for any of these organizational units, if I do not want numbering, I just have to go to the end of the command and put an asterisk. Okay. So this works across all. Then we played a bit around with the document class. Now, if I change this to report, right, what all changes happens?
Numbers will be gone and the chapters will show.
Yes. So first is the appearance changes, right? You get the separate title page, separate abstract page, and you can see that the section is no longer the highest order in your document organization because we have the chapter command. So if I come down here and say chapter, first chapter, and recompile. All right, so two things happen. Every chapter starts in a new page, right? And we also have a chapter number, and we no longer have numbering for our subsection. Okay. Now, if I change, how do I comment this line out? So I want to add another document class, say article, right?
Uh, we can put percentage in front of a backslash.
Yes. So we can put percentage, and the shortcut for that is control slash forward slash. Okay. So that way you can select a lot of lines at once and then comment or uncomment them, toggle comment. So the shortcut, yeah, control slash. Okay. Now, when I execute article, right? Now, do I have any errors in my code?
Chapter.
Yeah.
Because
So
we are in article, the chapter will not be applicable.
perfect. So the commands that are available to us also changes based on the document class that we're using. And you can always look at the logs and outputs to get an idea. This is a very small document, so we can readily see it. However, if you're working on a large document, you can always go to the line of the error by clicking on this line number here. Okay, so let's comment our chapter while we are in the article document class. Okay, so before we move on, I wanted to show a bit of this OLeaf utilities. Now, as and when you kind of like go through your document, your PDF is much more readable than your code editor, right? So it is much possible that you are going through PDF and you would want to make some changes at that particular position in your PDF. For instance, so I'm reading my PDF and I was like, okay, I want to change this area, a summary. So what I can do is, in order to get the corresponding location in the code editor, I can just double click on it. As soon as I double click on it, you can see the control just went to line 16. Right? So let me show you again. So in my PDF, wherever I would want the control to be in the code editor, I just double click it. Right? You can see the control goes to the corresponding position in the code editor. Now you can see this back and forth arrows as well. So you can use that. Okay. So if you are in a particular position in code editor, you would want to go to the PDF, right, in this direction. Then you can click on this arrow. You can see the corresponding line is highlighted in yellow for a second. Right. Apart from that, you can go from PDF to code editor using this arrow, but OLeaf suggests double click on the PDF for the best result. So instead of using this particular arrow, it says double click on the position in the PDF to get the best results when you jump to the code edit. Okay. Now another thing I would like to show is some options when you compile your LaTeX code. So we know that we use the compile button to convert our LaTeX code into an output PDF. Now, if you just click on this arrow button, there are a bunch of options that you can do. Now, auto compile just means that whenever you edit your PDF, so right now auto compile is off. If I turn it on, what happens is as and when I type in my code editor, it will automatically pick up the changes and recompile it for me. Okay. Now, compile mode, normal and fast, we can see the difference when we are dealing with figures. Right now, we are in the normal mode. If we select the fast mode, then the figures that we have implemented in our code will not be shown in our PDF. The problem is it takes a bit of time to add figures to our output PDF. So if you select the fast option, then the figure is not rendered, so you get the output PDF quicker. So we can see the effect of it when we come to figures. Okay, so check syntax before compile. It will give you any errors in your syntax before you click on recompile. Now, compile error handling. Right now, you remember when we had the uh, error with the chapter command because we were using the article class, we still got the output PDF because in right now the option selected to us is the second option. Try to compile despite errors. Okay. So what this does is this gives you an output PDF even when there are errors in your code. Okay. And this is the current selection. Now, if we select the first option, that is stop on first error, then if there is any error in your code editor, you will not get an output PDF. It will just stop and say, okay, you have an error, fix it. Now, stop on first error is good when you are dealing with large documents so that you do not have to handle all the errors at once. Right? Try to compile despite errors. It's okay for beginners because when we start off, at least we can see something in our output PDF going wrong and gives us a visual indicator as to what we can do. Okay. But when you're dealing with large documents, stop on first error is good. Okay, recompile from scratch. So sometimes what happens is some of your logs might get corrupted or the state of your LaTeX uh, um, running in your browser might get corrupted. So assume the .tex file is working in your friend's overleaf, but it's not working on your overleaf. What we can do is we can click on recompile from scratch. What it does is it removes all the auxiliary files and recompiles from a new state. Okay, so it deletes all the auxiliary files and recompiles fresh. All right. So let's go on to our section, right? Uh, so when we have sections, we can also have table of contents, right? Which is a nice way of getting a summary of whatever is happening in our document. So to get the table of contents, you can go to line 19 and say / table of contents. Okay, so wherever you would want the table of contents to be displayed, you go to that particular line and then you put the command table of contents. Okay, so let's see what happens. Right, you can see first of all the sections, subsections and subsections are listed along with the corresponding page numbers. Second is by default, the table of contents will only contain the numbered sections. However, we can change this behavior to include unnumbered sections as well. But right off the box, this is what you get. Okay, all the list of all these sections, subsections, subsections, along with their page numbers. Now let's see how this would look for report. So let's go ahead and activate our report class and also activate our chapter command. Okay, you can see table of contents. You can also change this name. Instead of contents, you can have table of contents. LaTeX allows a lot of customizations, right? So right now, table of contents is not clickable, meaning if I just try to click on the page number, it does not go to the corresponding page. We can fix that, okay? We'll come back to that. So this is how the report looks with the table of contents. You have a separate page for the table of contents. Okay, let's revert to article class. All right. So let's do a bit of cross-referencing. Okay. So down here, okay, as referred as mentioned in section 1, the okay LaTeX is adopted widely in academia. Okay. So say we have a line such as this. As mentioned in section 1, so basically we are referring to this particular section. We say later. So we would want to refer to something that is defined elsewhere in our document. So this is known as cross-referencing because we're referring to something else in our document. However, the problem with us like hard coding this value is, say I come here and add another section. So I'm writing this document, this is my draft. So it is a possibility that I can go ahead and add sections above and below, right? Now I am no longer, so this first section does not have the number section 1. It has the number section 2. So ideally, we would want this to be dynamically updated, right? Otherwise, the onus is on you as the author to do this double check before submission. Make sure everything is referring to what it is. So it's a bit tedious and error prone. So to overcome that, what we can do is we can add dynamic references to our section. Now, adding references to a section has two parts. The first part is that we need to give a name to our section. Okay. So, one is to give a section name for referencing. Okay. So, once you have given the section name, second thing is you actually make the reference. Right. So, let's see how we can do this. As I said, the first step is to give a name for a reference, right? So to give a name for a reference, just below the section or next to the section command, you can add another command called the label command. This label command can be used to give reference names to equations, figures, tables, anything with numbers, right? If you want to refer them, in order to give a reference name, we can use the backslash label, okay? Now, when you are giving a reference name, you can give anything, right? You can give the same thing as what you have given the section name, so on and so forth. However, when you are writing a large document, you would want to make sure that the reference names or the label names that you give to all these numbered entities do not clash. Okay. So, for instance, say For this first section, I give the reference name first. Then I have another, say I have another subsection here. I also give it the name label first. Now what happens? I have two entities with a reference name first. Now LaTeX does not know what you are actually referring to, right? So you need to always make sure these clashes don't happen. Okay. So ideally, you can give anything. However, the followed convention is entity name, entity type, colon, name. That means here, what am I trying to name? I'm trying to name a section. So I start my name with SEC, colon, and then I say first. So following this convention, you can have a figure also named first. You can also have a subsection also named first. Right? So following this convention, you minimize the risk of name clash. Okay. So however, this is not enforced by LaTeX, but it is good to follow this. So we say SEC colon first. Right? So now let me add a line to this section. This is my first section. Okay. Let me comment the section introduction as well. Mhm. The problem with working with online platform is this. Sometimes the connection drops. So don't refresh when that happens, because if you do, you lose all the edits that you have made. Okay. So adding a label does not affect our output. Do you see anything in our output PDF? No. So even if I comment the label and recompile, our output PDF does not change. So a label is just for our internal management of document, mainly for cross-referencing. Okay. So now that I have this particular label defined for this particular section, I now need to make the actual reference. Now this is the area, right? Section 1 is where I would want to make the reference. So I can just remove this whole thing, right? And say backslash ref. So the command that is used to actually make the reference is backslash ref, and the input to this command is the labels that you have defined. So right now my document has only one label called SEC first. So let's just select that. Recompile. Now you can see as mentioned in 1. So ref only gives the number. If you would want the entity type, you would have to explicitly put it, right, as mentioned in section 1. Now, if I say go ahead and add a section above the first section, say a section called introduction, right, you can see that my section number here is dynamically updated. So this way you can rest easy knowing that, okay, if I add a section above or below, it does not matter because this will get updated dynamically. Okay. So to make this happen, we need to know two commands. One is the label command, which we use to name our entity, and the second is the ref command, which we use to actually make the reference. Any doubts so far? All good. Would you want me to repeat anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So you guys tell me how to add a reference to the subsection. Okay, so instead of this section, I would want to add a reference to this particular subsection. So what is the first step do I need to do here?
We need to make label command in subsection.
Yes. So first thing is we need to add a label so we can make a reference to this subsection. So first always follow this nomenclature. Start with the entity type. What is this? Subsection colon. We can say first again because it won't clash, right? Because this label is SEC first and this is sub SEC colon first. Okay. All right. Now that I have the label, say I would want, so So I would want to add a reference here. How can I do that?
Subsection
Mm-hmm.
slash reference
Mm-hmm.
in a subsection first.
Okay. All right. You can see that it has referred to the subsection 2.1. So just below the entity, create the label and then make a reference using the ref command. Now, all this is nice, but I would want the references to be clickable. Meaning, if I just click on section 2.1, it should go to that particular line. If I click on section 2, right? It makes sense because if someone is reading a large document, you do not want the reader to scroll up and down, right? So to overcome that, we can use packages. Now, LaTeX became popular mainly due to its plethora of packages that we have. Okay, so you can think of package as some extra functionality of LaTeX that been stored away somewhere. Okay, so think of it as a library. If you would want that functionality to be added into your into your document here, then we need to tell, hey LaTeX, there is some functionality of yours called this. I would want to use it in my document. Okay, so to do that, we will be using a command called use package. All right. So anytime you would want to use an external package in your LaTeX document, you need to use the use package command, and it should go in the preamble. Okay. So any setup, it will be in the preamble. So backslash use package, and there is the package name called hyperref. Now I'm just importing this package, meaning I am using this package in my code. I'm not doing anything else. So let's recompile and see what happens just out of the bat, right? Do you see that all these become clickable? You can see that I get the hand icon, right? So if I say first section, it will automatically jump to that area, right? Similarly, if I say section 2, so the content is too little. So let's use another content called blind text. Okay. So blind text is just like it gives us the Laurel Ipsum blind text. So instead of me adding it, I can just say blind text. So I just show what the output looks like. So you can see that instead of me like trying to cook up some statement, I can just use the blind text command to give this lorem ipsum, the dummy text. Okay, so blind text just adds some dummy text into my document. Okay, so coming back to hyperref, so if I click on section 2, you can see it automatically goes to that particular content, right? Similarly for 2.1, if I say it goes. So using hyperref, all your cross references become clickable. Apart from that, you have the added advantage of using some of the additional commands that this particular package gives. So hyperref gives us another command to make references. So the command is \autoref. And the input to the command is again the labels that we have defined earlier. All right. Now, what is the difference between ref and autoref? Right? Can anyone see and tell me? Can you all like notice any difference between ref and autoref?
Uh, it shows subsection 2.0 पूरा मतलब पहले सिर्फ
Mhm.
2.0 में दिखा रहा था अब 2 सबसेक्शन 2.0 पूरा दिखा रहा है.
Yes, perfect. So before the entity name, like section, subsection, we had to manually write it, right? Because the reference would just give us the numbering. However, autoref gives us not just the numbering, but what is the entity type as well, like subsection. So just be cautious though, because many of publishers will tell you like if they what kind of should you use ref or auto ref, okay? Because they can. It so happens that sometimes packages can clash. So always read the documentation that the publisher gives. If they do not recommend using hyperref, then don't use it. If they are okay, then use it. Okay. This covers the cross-referencing. Again, we will revisit cross-referencing when we do um, equations, figures, and tables, right? So the um, format is the same. \label to name the entity and ref or autoref to actually make the reference. All right. Now, coming to this blind text is also another package, right? So I know that I quickly went through it, so just wanted to bring this particular command into your attention. So blind text is a command that is available in this blind text package. Now if I comment out this package, meaning if I deactivate the inclusion of this package into my LaTeX document and recompile, I get an error. I get an error saying the compiler is this thing. So the control sequence at the end is not defined. So basically it's saying undefined control sequence. So you need to make sure that you use the corresponding package in order to get the commands that are defined in it. Now, if I activate the use package command, everything works well. Now, blind text, the \blind text, the command just adds this dummy text, right? So our document starts looking full and I don't have to worry about like coming up fancy statements here. Any doubts so far? All right. So let's move on. Before we discuss list and all of it, I would want to take a bit of time to talk about this document class. Now, you might all have the question, what are all the inputs that I can give in my document class, right? So we saw report, article. Now, there are a bunch of suggestions that you get. So Beamer is the document class to create PPTs, okay, slides. And letter is the class that you would want to use in order to write letters, right? Now, apart from this, there are so many that are available. So let me just share this link in the chat quickly. Okay. So these are all the available document classes that we have. You can see some publishers, right? So if we say IEEE, you can see based on the type of IEEE conference or transactions, right? You have different classes. For Elsevier also you have, right? Based on the type, you have different document classes. Apart from that, you can also see the article as well in the list. So this is, yeah, there's a lot of articles listed here, but it is there. Yeah, you can see article, default class for composing. So this is a very exhaustive list of all the document classes that are present. Okay. So we will try some of them in the last session. But if you are curious, you can like try some of them and play around with it. Now, apart from this, the type of document class, this document class also takes some optional inputs. For instance, if I type document class, right, I get two options, right? One with the square bracket, curly bracket, and the other one with just the curly bracket. So we have been using just the curly bracket. So let's just see the first option. Document class allows us to perform customizations. Now these customizations are optional. So usually, say we have a command. If a LaTeX command needs some mandatory inputs, those inputs will always be in curly brackets. Now, if a LaTeX command takes some optional inputs, then those inputs will be in square brackets. Okay. So, one thing is, right out of the bat, the font size. Okay, so say we say 12 point. So within the square brackets, I'm just saying 12 point. And let me recompile. You can see everything got a bit bigger, right? Because the default font size is 10 points. Now there are three options for font size here, 10, 11 and 12. Now if you want anything more than this, you have to import another package. Now the font size that you give here is the font size for the overall document. This is the main content. Okay, so what it does is the title, section, all the relative font sizes that you see, the sections, subsections, all that will be set relative to the font size of the main document. So here, when I say 11 points, say for instance, all I'm saying is in the main document, in the main the main text in the document should be 11 point. The title, subsection, headings should all be relatively chosen to that. So if I recompile, everything should go a little bit smaller. Okay. So that's what this point does. Apart from that, we can give a comma separated list of options. Okay. Say we would want to give font size as well as paper, A4 paper. Okay. So would you want it to be letter paper, A5 paper, like whatever you want it to be. So you can give the paper. Apart from this, we can also say if we would want single column or two column, say two column. So the default, now all these options that I'm giving here have some default values. Okay. For instance, the default font size is 10 point. The default column is one column, right? If I put two column, let's see what happens. Let me zoom out a bit. Right? Do you see how my paper is now split into two columns? So if you want some extra customizations, we can do so with document class. However, this is limited, right? But it does give us some options. So any of the classes that you see, what you can do is you can look into the documentation as well. You see, you can see something called as the documentation, and you can read through the documentation for all the information about this particular class. Okay. So let's keep it to one column, but I will keep this document class command there for you so you can play around. Now, because LaTeX is so accepted by the academic community, there are a lot of helpful tools, right? You can, like, Overleaf itself has a lot of blogs, there are a lot of community answered questions, so you can always look up some helper information if you find this package documentation to be a bit daunting. Okay, but I would always recommend to double check, meaning, say you go to Stack Overflow and get some answer about some package, come back to CTAN, look up information about it to double check, because sometimes what happens is there are some revisions that keep on happening. So what the answer that they have given might not always work for you. So if it doesn't work, come check the package documentation, see if the updated version works. Okay. So let's say 12 point. Right, everything is bigger. I would also want to keep just the vanilla article. All right. Now, regarding packages, same thing. So, CTAN, as the name suggests, Comprehensive Tech Archive Network, is the one place lookup to see all informations regarding the document class as well as packages. Now, if you see browse, there are these options, right? You can browse by packages, right? It's all listed alphabetically. Alternatively, you can look up a package. For instance, we have been using the HyperF package, right? So click search. So type in the package name and click search. So here, this is the listing that we would want. Click on it. Again, there is a manual associated with it. There is the package documentation, right? You can always take a look at the documentation to understand more about it. Okay, because this too takes optional inputs, right? So you can always explore. So when in doubt about a package, go to CTAN, look it up, look up the package documentation. Now I would like to start how to create bullet point list, numbered list. However, like, let's take a 5-minute break and then we can, or like, you can digest whatever we have discussed so far and we can continue from there. Okay. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask at this point, or you can type it out in the chat as well.
Participants, so madam has given a break of 5 minutes. So in case if you have any questions, please note it down and you can ask anytime or you can even put it in the chat. And one another request is please join by your registered name. Please don't join from your college computer. Please join by your registered name. So because we need the names. So we shall start in another 3-4 minutes.
Hi all, let's resume. So, one thing that I would like to mention regarding the hyperref is that like it gives us this clickable links, but it also gives us this red bounding box, right? So if you're unhappy with this red bounding box, you can turn it off by using this optional input. So whenever I say optional input to a package, it will go in square brackets, okay? So I can say hide links. So when I do this, it will still be clickable, right? So first subsection, it will still be clickable, but you no longer have the red bounding box, okay? Now, another side note in regarding improving the readability of your code is that you know that we are going to use packages. Right now, we have two. You might have some n number of packages that you might be using when you are writing a large document. When that happens, it's always nice to add one line of comment next to the package to improve the readability. Okay, so for instance, we can just say right next to hyperref, we can add the comment clickable references. Okay, for blind text, we can just put a comment as to why we need this dummy text generation. Right, so it improves the readability of your code. Okay. With this in place, let's go ahead and talk about list. Let me create a new section for this section. list. Now there are two types of lists that we commonly use, right? A bullet list, right? Or a numbered list. So a bullet list is also called an unordered list, right? Because there is no ordering among them. In the sense, we do not have one, two, three as we would have in a numbered list. So let's just say, let's just create a subsection and talk about unordered list. This is an unordered list. Right? So far, we have just added a section and one line underneath the section. Now, to actually create the list, you need to have an environment. So usually, if you're a bit confused whether to use a single command or an environment such as begin and end, the rule of thumb is, in most cases, it will be an environment if you're going to add a lot of information into it. For instance, a list has entries, right? You can have multiple entries in your list. So that tells me, okay, it is possible that it will be mostly an environment. It's not always the case, but most of the times this is the case, right? Now, what is the environment name? It's called itemize. Okay, so let's just execute this and see what we get. Now, all we have is this single bullet point. That is thanks to this backslash item command. A backslash item command just tells that you are creating a new entry in your list. Say this is my, okay, so rather this is an item. Okay, this is an entry in my list. Okay, so I'm done with this entry. In order to generate another bullet point, I need to say backslash item, right? So you get the point. So begin itemize, end itemize is an environment defining an unordered list. Now backslash item tells LaTeX, okay, I'm going to start a new entry in my list, start with a bullet point. Now this bullet point can be changed using a package. We will be exploring that a bit later in the session. Now, can anyone tell me if I would want to add a third entry in my list? How can I do that? So in order to add another entry in the list, we need to again start off with backslash item. Right? So anytime you would want a bullet point, then all you can do is backslash item. Okay? So this is an unordered list. Let's look into ordered list or numbered list. So to do that, similar to the unordered list, we will start with the begin and end. The input is enumerate. Okay. Now let me compile. Now as soon as I do this, now the backslash item command in this case behaves a bit differently because of the surrounding environment, right? In the first case, we got bullet points. However, in the second case, the item command is generating numbers for us. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we can say first entry in the list backslash item, second entry in the list. Now, if I would want a third entry, can anyone tell me how can I add a third entry to my list?
Ma'am, again backslash item.
Yes, very good. So every time we would want a new entry in our list, we say backslash item. Right? You can see how sequentially the order in which the items are mentioned, that is the order in which they will be presented as well. Any doubts regarding the list? All you have to know is select the appropriate environment, itemize or enumerate, and then just use the backslash item command to add new entries into your list. Okay. Now, it is a common practice to nest your list, right? For instance, let's create another section called nested. Let's just talk about a list inside a list is called nesting of list. Now we always have something like this, right? So we have bullet points, and then we have sub bullet points, right? We have arrows. So you get the gist. So we have different levels within the list itself. So how do we generate this structure? Okay. So say we have first entry, second entry, and then you would want to start another sub list, that is a list within the list. So under second entry you would want to have, say, entry 1, entry 2, right? So on and so forth. You would want to perform some kind of nesting. So let's see how we can achieve that. Now to start with the outermost list, let's just copy the itemize. Just a side note. Now the O leaf gives us some UI buttons for us to have, for it to add like ready-made commands to our code. For instance, I know that we need begin itemize, end itemize to start with an unordered list. That is the bullet point. You can type it, or you can go up top here and say, do you see this bullet list? If you just click on that, the corresponding code is added for me. Okay. So if it is covered, you can see this 3 dots here. Click on the 3 dots, and then there is this option for bullet list. Now, if you would want a numbered list, just click on that. And if I click on that, you see it's changed to enumerate. Okay. So let's go back to bullet list and see what happens if we achieve some nesting. So I'll just copy the contents here. Okay, so this is not that interesting. It just creates a bullet list. Now say under this is another entry in my list, I would want to create a sub list. Just like you would create a normal list, a sub list as well, you're just putting another itemized environment. Okay, so within an itemized environment, wherever you would want a sub list, you just start another itemized environment. Okay, so begin item sublist entry backslash item another sublist entry. Right, you can see. So again, just like the thanks command, for this as well, LaTex has this preset symbols. Again, you can change them using enum item. Okay, that it uses. So for the outermost list, it uses bullet points, solid bullet points. For the inner list, it uses the dash. Now say under another sublist entry, I would want to create another sublist. So another nested level of listing. Can anyone tell me how can I do that? So under this particular entry, I would want to create another sublist. So how can I do that?
Ma'am, I think it is again the backslash on the item.
Okay, so if we do backslash item, it will just add another entry, right? But I don't want a single entry, but I want to start another list. So can anyone tell me how would I start an unordered list, a bullet list? Using the begin itemize environment, right? So all I do is I just start one more environment down here. So begin itemize, end itemize, right? So I can now start adding backslash item sub list entry, right? So what happens is when you keep on having itemized environment inside another itemized environment, inside another itemized environment, you get these levels of nesting. Okay, this is my outermost list, L1. This is my inner list, L2. And this is my innermost list, L3. Now say I would want to create one more list inside this. How do I go about doing that?
Ma'am, then again you have to go with backslash begin item size.
Perfect. Begin. So say we would want to do it under this sublist entry, right? So we would say begin, itemize, and then again start creating our sub list, right? So right. So now we get a small dot here. Now again, say I again want to do a nesting. So again I can just say begin, itemize, right? And then just add one more sub. Okay. Now, obviously, there should be a limit to our nesting depth, right? Now, as soon as I add one more level of nesting depth, I get an error. It says too deeply nested. So when we want to put itemize inside an itemize inside an itemize, by default, you can only do it 4 times. Okay. So the nesting level is only 4. That means if I just see the levels in my list, L1, L2, L3, and this is L4. So I cannot go deeper than this. I get an error. You can see this sub list entries should have been here, right? It's not. Is this nesting clear? Right? It's all about creating the environment within an environment to get a sublist.
But is it like it depends on the indentation to create the
So,
sublist, nested list?
The indentation is added by default. Oh, you mean in the code, is it? No, the indentation does not matter. Do you mean in the code?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
The indentation does not matter. You see, it works. I just add the indentation because of 2 things. I come from programming background, so it's like intuitive for me to put like indentation to say this goes inside this. And second thing is this is more readable, right, than having everything in one line like this. Yeah. So just to improve
Okay.
readability, you can add the indentation, but it does not have any meaning. Good question.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
All good? Yeah. So let's try and do this nesting for our numbered list as well. Okay. So this is a nested unordered list. This is a nested ordered list or numbered list. So we know that for ordered list, we can use enumerate. So similarly, we have this shortcut, right? We can go here, click on the number list icon, and we have the code for it here. So this, let me just copy the list that we created earlier. Okay. So now say I would want a sub list under the second entry. How can I do that? So under the second entry, I would want a sub list.
Ma'am, then I think it should be begin enumerator.
Okay, begin enumerate, right? So wherever we would want the sub list to be, we just go to that particular point and say begin enumerate because we want the numbered list, right? So first sub list entry, second sub list entry. So again, these numberings, the orders are defined. Okay, that means the outermost list will have 1, 2, 3. The inner list will have A, B. All right. Say we would want another level begin enumerate, right? First sub list entry. Second sub list entry. Right? This is smaller case Roman numerals. Say again, we would want to create another level. So we just do begin enumerate, so on and so forth. So begin enumerate item first. So let me just copy this and just add. Yeah. Now, can anyone tell me if I add another level of enumerate, will it work?
No, ma'am. By default, it is only level 4.
It is only level 4 and we have already exhausted 4 levels, right? So if I just do this, if I add another enumerate, it will complain, right? Saying always pay attention to the error message. If this is too small, you can always go here and see what happens, what happened here. Okay, you can expand, you can read. You're in trouble here, right? Sometimes it gives some meaningful information as well. Also, try to read this first line. Okay, too deeply nested just means that you have put one too many environments inside it. Okay. All right. Now this is fine, but many a times we also do a mixed nesting, right? Meaning we have ordered, unordered mixture of them. How do we do that? Any ideas? Okay, so let's say I would want to do something like this. So on the outermost, I would want bullet points. Inside, I would want number like this. So, can anyone tell me what should be the first environment that I need to start off with?
Begin itemize, then begin enumerate, then again begin itemize.
Okay, so you were right. Begin, itemize, right? And then let's just put like some entry. Okay, I just use the blind text so that we have more content. Okay, so first three items are bullet points, right? Okay, so we get like 3 bullet points here. Now underneath the third bullet point, we would want begin enumerate. So where should I put begin enumerate? Should I put it outside or inside the itemized environment? So the hint is, take a look at this level. They're all, these bullet points are on one level and these 1, 2, 3 points are in an inner level. So this tells me these bullet points are in level 1 and this is in level 2. So it's a sublist. 1, 2, 3 is a sublist. So if I would want to create a sublist, how do I do it? Do I create an environment inside the itemized environment or outside it?
Inside, ma'am.
Inside. So let me just write that quickly. So inside the itemized environment, I will be like begin, right, enumerate. And here again, let me just put in some entries. Say first entry, item, second entry, item, third entry. Right? If I recompile, so underneath the third bullet point, right? Do you see underneath the third bullet point, we have the number list 1, 2, 3. Now, how do I get these last 2 bullet points?
End the enumerate and again start the item.
Okay, perfect. So again, I just say \item. Okay. Just adding some dummy text for each entry in the list. Right? You get the point. Now the indentation in the output matters, right? Because if it's a nested list, it will be slightly inside than the outermost list. Does this make sense? Now you can like do further nesting inside this enumerate. You can create another itemized enumerate, so on and so forth, right? And also if say after the last bullet point, you would want another enumerate, right? You can do that as well. Right? So how many ever times this nesting is needed, we can do it, and the level of nesting for each type is 4. Any doubts so far?
So ma'am, can we add this first entry one enumerate है उसमें हमें ABC अगर add करना है तो can we add that?
Yes. So you can just create another enumerate inside this, right? Say, okay. I'm just going to say another entry. Right? You can see under this we have the ABC. So you as the this thing can like take the call
Okay.
as to yeah. So play around with it. Any combinations. What I would suggest is take a paper of your in choice and try to replicate it. Right? If it has a list, try to replicate the list. Helps you kind of understand. And if you have any, if you face any challenges, you can always post your questions in WhatsApp. So I'll take a look and we can address it in the next session. Okay. Another thing sometimes it happens is that we would want to resume the numbering as well. We'll come to that. We can use something called as the enum item. But before we move on to the package enum item, I have one more type of listing that I would like to cover. So this one is basically just to use descriptions. So if you would like to add a description, for example, so there's a, say you're writing a document, you would want to have a word and then right next to it, you would want to have the description. Okay, say for example, LaTex, a a software for creating documents. And say you would also have another word, say IDE, and you kind of like add a definition. Fancy editor to type in our code. Right? So basically, you are creating kind of a list wherein you have a word and you kind of like have a definition associated with it. Now, if you were to do this in Word, right, the Word software, you would create a column and make sure the left hand side you have the word, on the right hand side you have the definition, and then you would have to manually boldface these to indicate these are the words that you are defining. Now, to overcome all these challenges, what LaTeX has introduced is a new type of list called a description. Okay, so let's see how it works and how we can use it. Okay, so let's go now up here and add a new section called descriptions. Okay, to start off again, because this is also a type of list, this is a list of descriptions, right? We start off with an environment. Now, what type of environment? It's called a description environment. Okay. Now, as soon as I add this, and let me recompile. Right. This is a list of descriptions. There is no list created here. However, if you see the item command here, it looks a bit different than the rest. What is the difference here with the item command that's been added? Anyone?
The square box.
Yeah. So what does this mean? Square brackets in LaTeX. So we have dealt with square brackets when we were importing our packages with our document class. Any idea?
We can force changes.
Yes, we can force changes, but also it means that we can give optional inputs, right? So square bracket just means optional input, right? So item by default takes an optional input, right? Which is the word that we are defining in this case. So let's say LaTeX. And then let's describe what LaTeX is. This is a software that helps us write pretty looking documents. Okay, fine. I'm done defining this particular word. Let me just go ahead and define another word. So where can I do? I can just do item. Okay, within the square bracket. Right now, if I just put item, there's nothing associated with description, because description wants you to give you the word and the description, right? So the input to the item is the word that we are defining. So say IDE, a fancy editor to type in our code. Okay. So let's execute this and see how it looks. Nice. You can see how the word has been distinguished from the rest of the document, from the rest of the content, right? And everything is aligned and looks really nice. So this is the thing of description. So description is basically the use cases. If you have a word, if you have a bunch of words that you want to describe, like basically you have a list of definitions. So when you have such a use case, you can use the description list. Okay. Now let's see, through this particular environment, we have seen that this item takes an optional input, right? So maybe we can give an optional input to our enumerate environment as well. So what happens? So in the enumerate environment, say, I would say instead of a bullet, I would put a semicolon just for this particular. And I say fourth and, sorry, this is an enumerate, right? Let's go to our itemize. Even in enumerate, we can do it, but I would want to show it in itemize first. Let's say we put a semicolon as the optional input and say a special entry. Okay, and let's put another this thing and just say a normal entry. So let's see what happens when we give this optional input to the item command in itemize environment. Okay, if we scroll up, what just happened? Anyone?
Change the type of bullet.
Yes. So the thing is, whatever input we gave here to the item command, it overrode the bullet point. So for a if you would want to change the entry, the bullet point entry or whatever, the basically this is called the list icon. Okay, the bullet point that you see here is called the list icon or the item name. If you would want to change it for a particular entry, you can do it by using this optional input to the item command. Okay, you can also say item note this is a note to the reader, right? You can see that whatever input I give here, it overrides the bullet point. Now let's see the behavior of this optional input in case of enumerate. Okay, so we have third entry in the list. Okay, let's do the same thing. Item, semicolon, fourth entry in the list. And then let's just create a normal item, okay, which is the fifth entry in the list. Now again, I would want you to tell me what are the changes that you see here.
It takes a bullet and the skip the number of that particular entry.
Yes, perfect. So basically two things happen. One, enumerate should give us numbered list, right? Instead, it is now taking whatever I have given here. as optional input, right? Now, when I give an optional input, yes, it overwrites the numbering, but something else also happens. You would assume that the fifth entry would have the 5, right, as the number, but it does not. So, because what it does is the internal counter that is there, it will not increment when we item command has an optional input. Okay, so that is why the fifth entry has the number 4. So it skips a number or it skips an entry and then adds the number. Make sense? So to some extent, you can make some customizations to your list using this item command. Okay, so shall we move on, or if you all have any doubts, would you want me to repeat anything, or you all good?
We can move on, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we're still not done with list. Obviously, the customizations are endless, but I do want to give you the package that would help you to do it. Okay, so there is a package called enum item. Okay, so here, if you see here, we can look for the enum item. If you are interested to know more about customizations, you can look up this particular package documentation. Now, if I want to use this enum item package, how do I tell LaTeX about it? Do you all recall the command that we use to use a package? No worries. So, first thing is, whenever you would want to add a package to your document, you go to the preamble. That is the area between the document class and the begin document. So this is the preamble, right? So you go to the preamble and then use the command use package. To this, in the input to this command is the package name. In my case, it is enum item. Make sense? Now you tell me, if I have a package named ABC, how do I import it or how do I use it in my document?
Ma'am, use use package and within the brackets ABC.
Yes, perfect. Okay.
You have
So
that has to be written in the preamble.
yes, perfect. Right? We have to write it in the preamble. And then if you would want, you can add a line of comment right next to it. So this one, we would want to use it to perform list customizations, right? Okay. So you can perform many customizations. So let me just show you 2 examples. The first is, let me create a section for this. Many a times, especially with enumerate, we would want to continue the list elsewhere, right? So what you can do is, if I say begin enumerate, okay, item, say first entry, second entry. Now, say we have some text here, and then we would want have another list called third entry, okay? and let's say fourth entry as well. So let's recompile. If we just scroll down here, yeah, customizing list. So the thing is, I would want to continue the numbering. So from 1 to, I would want this to be 3 and 4. Now there is no way right now that LaTeX knows that I intend to continue my list. So what I can do is, I can just say resume. So right next to begin enumerate, in square bracket, I'm just saying resume. Okay, do you see how the numbering just resumed? Now this functionality comes because I am using the enum item package. Okay, so just to summarize, we have two numbered lists. I would want the second numbered list to resume its numbering. So to do that, just next to the begin environment of the second list, in square bracket, I say resume. You can take a look at the enum items PDF and look for like other customizations that are possible. Okay. Now you can also do something more complex, such as this. Adding prefix to the enumerate item labels. So when I say item labels, all I'm saying is like 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, I would want it to say step 1, step 2, step 3. Right? So basically, to the numbering, I'm adding the prefix step. So how can we do this? So let's create and enumerate as before. I'm just going to add 3 entries. Okay, perfect. Now, this is same old list. It's still not adding the prefix. Now, any customizations that enum item gives us, most of them, if you would want to apply to every entry in the list, will go in the same line as the begin statement. Okay, so right next to begin enumerate, you can start a square bracket. Within the square bracket, you can put your customization. Now what I'm saying is, the item labels, that is this 1, 2, 3, 4, I would want to give some customization. So I'm going to say label equals, do not confuse this with the backslash label command. This is just the item labels, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just redefining it here. So I'm going to say step. So label equals to step. Now let's see what happens. You can see every entry has been changed to step, step, step. But this is not what I wanted. I do not want to replace the numbering 1, 2, 3. I just want to add the prefix. So I need to tell LaTeX, right next to step, I still want to apply the numberings. Now, what type of numberings do I want? Do I want Roman numbers, Arabic numbers, right? So I would want Arabic. So I would say backslash Arabic. And then I would want this Arabic numbering to be applied to every entry in my item. That's why I put an asterisk. If I compile, see, I get step 1. So all I'm saying is, start with the word step, and then for every item you have a counter, right? Use the Arabic numbers for that counter. And this asterisk is just so that this applies to every item in the list. Now say I put colon here. Then what happens? Any guesses?
It gives step 1, colon, then first entry.
Perfect. right? So whatever label I'm redefining here will be is what applied here. Now what is happening is in my new label, there are two parts. One is the static part and the other is the dynamic part. The static part is this, right? This does not change from item to item, right? They all remain the same. The dynamic part is this. So all I'm saying is this item counter that you are maintaining, give it to me in Arabic form and apply this, the asterisk says, apply this to all the item entries. So the customizations are endless. I would recommend you looking into Overleaf's blog on list, right? So there is a specific blog in Overleaf dedicated to list, which gives you a lot of information as to how you can take this one step further. Okay. But most of the customizations revolve around the enum item package. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So let's just use the next 5 minutes to lay the foundation for tomorrow's session. So for tomorrow, we will be dealing mostly with how to format our text, right? And also how to add equations, right? If you have like specific equations in mind, you can share it in WhatsApp and I will like try to implement them in the session tomorrow. Okay. Um, Regarding the assignment, just give me a minute, please. All right. So this file will be shared with you. So this particular document was created using LaTeX too, right? You can make it as fancy as this. So you can give background image to your document, right? Add your logo because of the header footer concept. Obviously, these are some advanced concept. We won't be looking into it, but I just want to show you that you can make it as fancy as you want. So for assignment, it is very simple, right? So what I want you to do is start off by creating your own project in Overleaf, right? And in the main.tech that we get, create at least 2 sections and create at least one list. And also try to add cross-referencing, right? Try to make it as complex as you can. This is actually just the bare minimum, kind of like revises whatever we have done in today's session and in yesterday's session, right? So let me also share the file for today. Okay, so you can access the file that I'm working on for today. I think you can use the same link as yesterday as well because it's the same project. Hopefully you can all access the link that I've shared.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how are you all feeling about LaTeX so far?
It's quite easy and less time taking than Word.
Hmm. Do you feel a bit overwhelmed with the number of commands that we are learning, or do you feel it's pretty intuitive and usable?
Ma'am, actually, it's usable. It's just about command, so we'll be used to it after while using.
Okay. So you are excited to use it in your research projects.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that's pretty much it for today. If you have any questions, please do ask at this time. If you would want to see any customizations that we have done up until now, like furthermore, if you are interested to see, I can guide you as well.
Ma'am, in this we have step 1. If I want step 1.1,
Mhm.
then how it
So,
has to be done, ma'am?
so if it's static, say the outermost is static, so you can just do step 1.1, right? Now,
Ma'am, no, I want step 1. Inside
mm,
that, I want step 1.1 as we write in algorithms.
okay, so you would want step here, mirrored, right? The problem is if we do this, it will be static. We do not want that, right? Okay. So this will give you, but this is not recommended. The problem is we need to access the level, one level, parent level. So we can just look up. So LaTeX, enumerate. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So do you see this particular enum I? So this is each level of enumeration has its own counter. Enum I, like, or you can just think of it as Roman number. Enum 1, enum 2, enum 3. Right? So these are the variables. It's all about knowing, okay? So because I know the fundamentals, as soon as I look up the code, I can relate to it. So obviously there are some scenarios even I wouldn't have come across, and that's okay. But what I would want you to know is, at least when you come across this code such as this, how to use it mindfully. Okay. So for instance, I know that enum this thing is contains the counter information. Okay. So instead of Arabic star, which takes the current elements. So this is the, when we say Arabic star, it takes the current list this counter. So what we are doing is instead passing the counter of the parent list. So let's just try to retype this. Okay. So Arabic, and the input to it, if I just put asterisk, it just takes the current list item counter. But instead, because you want 1.1, if it's for the first list sub entry, I say enum percent. Okay, enum I. So you can see I'm getting the same, but it is no longer static, meaning if I put it against the second entry, it should give me 2.1, right? Yeah. Does this make sense?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's all about, like, this asterisk takes the current list, but instead of the current list entry, I would want the parent list. That's what enum I takes, because this is in the first level. If it is in the second level, it will be II, and it will be the same thing as your current list. You can, right? Because I've changed it to II. So II keeps the counter for the level 2 list, and I keeps the counter for the level 1 list. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Any other questions or any variations that you would like to see?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, then we can wrap up here. Vidya ma'am?
Yeah. So now today's session is over. So madam has already given an assignment. So hope everyone will be working on overleaf just to try and understand how it works. So already if you have a paper or something ready, please try to put the content into this command list, whatever madam has already shared. So you can use the same command list and just put the contents into it and see how if it is working. Or in case if you have any doubts, no, please try to put it in the WhatsApp group. And for those who have not joined the WhatsApp group, please try to join using the link which has been provided. Is it clear? Anyone finding any difficulty in this ongoing sessions? Please let us know. Either direct message or in the WhatsApp, you can put your message regarding any doubts or any clarification, anything is required regarding this FTP. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Apoorva, ma'am, for today's session. So we'll meet again tomorrow, 1:30.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all.
Thank